everyone, welcome to Auxano. This is day 12. I can't believe how far we have come. It is amazing, and I am super grateful to everyone that has been a part of this journey so far. I was talking to one of you yesterday, and she was saying that she can't believe that it's just been 11 days. It feels like it's been a long time. And that can be a good thing. You're settling into consistent growth. It's becoming a part of you. And if that's your experience, I'm so proud of you. If you are showing up today with your last ounce of strength, I am praying for you. I know that God would have you grow, and I am here to do all I can to ensure that you grow. So if you've not joined our accountability group, please join. The link to do that will be in the description. So onto today's devotional. We've been on Ephesians for a while, and we took a break yesterday to talk about the Lord being your shepherd, and it was an amazing reminder even for me. So we're going back to Ephesians today, picking up from where we stopped. The last thing we talked about in Ephesians 4 was on humility. And if you listened, I wanted to share in the comment section what you learned about your humility. I want you to share what you learned from that particular episode or devotional, anyone you want to call it. I want you to share that in the comment section. I'm picking up from the same verse, Ephesians 4, verse 2, and it talks about gentleness in the very next breath, right? So earlier in the verse, it talks about being humble, but that's not where it ends. It says, be humble and gentle. So it's important to me that I share this because there is a common misconception I'm aware of that people equate gentleness to a personality type. So we have several personality types. We have broadly introverts, extroverts, and ambiverts, right? Introverts, people that are usually to themselves, quieter, more reserved. Extroverts are direct opposites, and ambiverts are like somewhere in the pretty middle of both sides of the spectrum. So many people, just equate gentleness to being an introvert, and that is not what Paul is talking about here. If you read Galatians 5, Paul was also the author of Galatians 5. He talks about gentleness again as a fruit of the Spirit, and the Amplified puts gentleness this way. It puts gentleness as humility or meekness. So you know how Amplified puts scriptures, right? It when it's explaining a scripture, it puts the explanation in a bracket. So for gentleness as a fruit of as a fruit of the Spirit, Amplified puts meekness and humility in a bracket to explain gentleness. So when Paul says be humble and gentle, it's kind of the same explanation that goes in Galatians 5:22, equating gentleness with humility. So in the full verse, I've explained several times, when you're doing Bible study, you don't read verses in isolation. You don't read chapters in isolation. This is an entire whole letter that Paul is writing to the church in Ephesus, right? So in the entirety of the verse, what Paul is saying is be humble and have a gentle disposition. There is an end point to what he's saying, and we will read it. It's later in the verse, and he's talking about how you should also be patient with people, knowing that they make faults. They have faults rather. So the whole point of being humble and gentle is don't esteem yourself so highly that you have a haughty or proud disposition to people even when they offend you. So humility, gentleness, and patience walk hand in hand, just like several fruits of the Spirit do. The fruits of the Spirit do not work in isolation. Love fuels humility. Love fuels gentleness. Love fuels patience. Gentleness fuels forbearance. They all work hand in hand in a way that makes sure you walk according to what the will of God is for you in that specific situation. So gentleness is not restricted to a certain personality type. The point of me hammering on this today is I don't want you to have the idea that because I'm an extrovert, I can't serve God the way an introvert would. The Lord created you unique from the next person for a reason. You are His special artwork, if I would say that. You are His handiwork, you are His masterpiece. And we learned about this earlier when we're doing the earlier chapters in Ephesians. God didn't make you by mistake. Now, when it comes to personality, you're not exactly born with the personality type. There are several things about us today that we pick up from how we were trained when we were younger. Now, there are certain things that are quirks for me. There are certain things that are pet peeves for me that I picked up from watching my parents. For instance, when I'm upset, I tend to notice things that are out of order faster. So if I'm upset and I walk into a room and the room is dirty, especially if the room is in my house, I tend to notice every single thing that is out of place. And that's how my dad is. Like, growing up, I watched my dad act like that. So if he was upset about something, he'll just be extra finicky about, the table being dusty, the remote is inside the chair, all those little things. And I picked that up. Like, it was not till very recently that I started to retrace, like, where did I get this from? And I just remembered I watched my dad do this. He didn't sit me down and say, Chisom, okay, this is how you should behave when you're upset. I picked it up from watching him. In the same way, there's several things about your character, there's several things about your disposition to life, including being extroverted or introverted, that you picked up from your surroundings, your conditioning, how you were raised. Now, the balance to your personality types and gentleness or any fruit of the Spirit at all is when you see traits in your life that directly oppose what the Lord would have you do in each situation, you must prioritize the Word of God. Now, if you're an extrovert, which is totally fine, you can fully serve God. In fact, there's some departments that would only thrive with a certain category of people. For instance, ushering, welcoming people to church. You can't exactly have the same experience when there's a shy person at the door and a person that is, so full of energy, full of love and smiles and ready to talk to anybody in the world. The experience will be different. And in the same vein, there's a kind of meticulousness that the media team requires. There's a kind of meticulousness that the editing team requires, that someone who is calmer may just have a disposition to serve better in that regard. Now, you can serve God with your different capacities, right? But when it comes to, your human relations, there's some questions that I would share that would help you just ask yourself, am I being gentle? I've already said that this does not have to do with you being an introvert or an extrovert. These questions apply to you in either scenario. So these are some of the questions. Number one, do you view yourself better than others? If you have a lofty view of yourself, that, there's this I'm better than everybody shoulder pad you're carrying, and sometimes it's obvious, sometimes you're the only one that can tell that you believe that or you act like that, so if you honestly introspect and you find that there is a superiority complex you have, you're not being gentle, you're not walking in this disposition. There's a definition of gentleness that I really like. It is, I was having a conversation with my husband, and this is how he defined it. Gentleness refers, gentleness reflects in how you carry yourself and exude the peace of God. That's like a paraphrase. So when you walk in gentleness, it will tell on your outer perspective whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. So one of the questions I've shared earlier that can help you on figuring this out is, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as better than others, better than every other person in the room? If you do, you're not being gentle. The second question I have is, how do you respond when people wrong you or offend you? Now, it may seem like polar opposites, like what does gentleness have to do with people offending me. But I told you about the very next sentence in that portion of Ephesians 4, where Paul says, be patient. And he talks about how you should handle offenses when people offend you. So humility and gentleness work with patience in that regard. So it is very important that you pause and ask the question, how do I feel when people offend me? Does it suddenly make me feel like the better person? Does it suddenly make me have a sense of superiority towards them? Now, I know that this may be very, over your head, or maybe feel different from your idea of gentleness. So I want to challenge you to read Ephesians 4 again, which could double as your first task today. I want you to read Ephesians 4 and genuinely introspect. Are there things that Ephesians 4 is admonishing Christians to do that I'm currently lacking in? And your very next task is to pray. I always advise that you pray from whatever you learn in devotion. So let's say you learned on humility yesterday or 2 days ago. I want you to start your prayer talking to the Lord about what you learned on humility and introspecting where you need this learning the most. The same way with gentleness today. Start your prayer telling the Lord what you've learned. That's if you've not prayed already. And even if you've prayed, you could just take some time to do that. And I would give a timer of 30 minutes today. All week, I have been giving 30 minutes because I want you to grow in comfort in that regard. I want you to grow comfortable praying for that long. And trust me, you can do it. I had a call with one of you on Auxano a couple of days ago, and she was telling me how she normally prays for, 20, 25, 30, 40 minutes. And she's able to stretch a bit in prayer. But for a while, she hadn't. And she wasn't sure why. And when we had that call, when the call finally ended, we spent like 98% of the call praying. The other parts were just like get feedback. What did you hear when you were praying? What do you want us to pray about? And all of that. And we spent about 45 minutes on that call, and we spent most of it praying. This is someone that wasn't sure she could pray on her own. And even after we ended that call, she still told me that she went back and spent more time praying. So you can definitely pray for 30 minutes. That's what I'm saying. And if you need help, scream for help on the accountability group today. I promise you, I'll do my best to be the one that responds. And even if I'm not the one that responds, I'm sure that there are other people there that will be more than willing to pray with you. And awesome avenue to get to know more people too. I mean, what do you stand to lose? Absolutely nothing. All right, this is the end of today's devotional. Let me check. Yeah, this is the end of today's devotional. The last thing I'll ask you to do, please share this video and be a blessing to someone else. I'll really appreciate if you do that. I love you very much, and I am always praying for your growth. I am right here to help you grow for the rest of this month and even beyond by the grace of God. So till tomorrow, have a growth-filled day. Bye.